Welcome to the first episode of 5-Minute DOS Reviews. I don't have a lot of time, so let's get started. I love Alone in the Dark, so much that I wrote about it already on CD-ROMfossil.com. In fact, it inspired this series. 5 minutes to limit myself, and hopefully the brevity will push you to check out the rest of the game for yourself, if the game I'm reviewing is good, that is. This horror classic came out in '92 with the CD-ROM release in '93. The following footage is the CD-ROM version. It has better graphics, animations, and a different soundtrack. Some people like the diskette soundtrack, others like the CD-ROM one. It boils down to personal preference. I happen to love the CD-ROM one. The ending song has to be my favorite. But I'm not here to discuss music. I'm here to discuss this intense horror experience. Alone in the Dark takes place in 1920s Louisiana. An artist, Jeremy Hartwood, committed suicide in the attic of the mansion Dercito. This is where the character selection comes in. You get a choice between Emily Hartwood and Edward Carnby. There is no difference in gameplay except appearance, male or female. It just depends on what you want your main protagonist to look like. I tend to go with Edward because he became the main character for the rest of the series. Regardless, both characters have their own reason for visiting Dercito. Selecting both at least once gives you a little insight to the lore, and Emily herself has a few gameplay hints hidden in her backstory. The CD-ROM version has voice acting, and it isn't half bad either. Every letter and book in this game has voice acting, and it's kind of nice. Whoever you choose, the story turns out the same, and to avoid spoiling the fun of organically discovering what's happening, I'm just going to say it's pretty awesome. It's very Lovecraftian. Once you pick a character, the opening cutscene starts, and behold, one of the few jump scares that existed back then, the frog. The main character arrives with something creepy looking from the attic, which is also the only light on in the house. Would you enter this terrifying house? I don't think I could do it. You watch your character climb to the attic, and then the game begins. This is where the intensity comes in. Within a minute, a creature's already busting through the window, and not much longer later, another monster will burst through a trap door. You gotta act fast. Push a wardrobe from the window, and push a chest over the trap door. Now you can breathe. This becomes the tone for the rest of the game. You're never sure what room is safe. Either zombies chasing you, or windows are being smashed. Once you know you can freely move around, begin exploring and searching every container. You're gonna need a lot of items to combat the monstrosities ahead. You can get a gun in the first room of the game, but don't get too hyped. There's not a whole lot of ammo. This is survival horror in its purest form. This predates Resident Evil, but I'm pretty sure you can tell that by the graphics. I think Alone in the Dark is a spooky game, but in a Nosferatu kind of way. The limitations of the time create crude visuals. This means that the creatures look even more otherworldly and incomprehensible. For me, it's terrifying to think what this actually looks like through the eyes of Edward or Emily. The whole atmosphere is amazing. Creepy house, creepy enemies. My favorite part is how the game doesn't even let you rest. The floor may fall underneath you, accidentally touch a ghost and lose your life because of it. This game's just awesome, but everything I said were pros. Survival horror, spooky atmosphere, creepy story. But here we go with the cons. First being the cryptic nature of the game. Before there were tutorials and tooltips, there was manuals, and what is this blanket even for? 90s logic is insane. How would you know that a calf sword that will break if used is going to be needed for a particular fight is just beyond me, and this is just a taste. Sure, the game gives you hints and books and notes and stuff like that, but it requires some extreme level of thinking and perception. I can't believe I myself have figured out some of this crap on my own. You may be sitting there thinking, I could beat this game without a walkthrough. Remember, this game does not highlight useful words. Determining what's a hint and what's just text is really hard. If you can beat this game on your very first go without a walkthrough, then you deserve a medal. Me, the first time I beat it required a walkthrough. Like, sure, maybe I could have done it without it, but it would have taken me exponentially longer. My advice, play it till you get stuck, look up a walkthrough, and then continue till stuck again. Also save like all the time with multiple save slots because, well, there's stuff like a book that kills you if you read it. It's kind of BS. Once you beat the game, you can probably beat it without a walkthrough time and time again. You know, I mentioned manuals, but I don't think the manual really helps you with puzzles. It just helps you with the second con, the controls. Me, I don't see this as a knock on the game's quality because it's DOS we're discussing. It's kind of the name of the game. Before standardized controls, there was a madman making control schemes. But if you're used to modern controls, then Alone in the Dark is rough. It's tanky, just like the original Resident Evils. The fixed camera also makes the controls hard to understand. Even when you master the controls, the mechanics are just rough. Combat requires holding space to ready your weapon or fists, and then hold one of the arrow keys to attack. Yeah, it sucks. Then you have to go in your inventory, change what spacebar actually does, whether it's jumping, searching, pushing, or combat. It bogs the game down, but again, this is mainly just outdated. The depths of what they could do with the hardware and knowledge of the time. But since I'm recommending this for someone to play, I will count them as two separate cons. So the cons, as a review, cryptic gameplay, outdated controls, and outdated mechanics. Get the game off GOG. Not sponsored or anything, it's just cheaper to get the trilogy and not the Steam bundle. The Steam bundle includes a crappier, newer game. Play it, it's well worth your time. Discover what's happening at Mansion Dercito, and, you know, get spooked. Whew, 5 minutes. Thank you so much for watching. That was rough.